and welcome to Meet the Author, a show where we explore the world through the imagination of talented writers. On this show, we will talk with authors from Laurel, Prince George's County, the DMV, and beyond. Our guest today is Miss Trina Ferguson, a leading advocate of homeschooling. She has educated her son, Christian, for the last 9 years, starting in kindergarten, and is now homeschooling him and her other 2 children also. Ms. Ferguson turned her experiences into a blog and later a book entitled Lessons Learned from My Homeschool Day, learning from the good, the bad, and the icky lessons to help you through your day. Mrs. Ferguson, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So we're going to take a journey with you from homeschool mom to your blog and then to published author.
Okay.
So what made you want to homeschool?
Honestly, it wasn't necessarily a want. It was my husband and I, we wrote out a chart and we did the pros, the cons, questions, concerns of public school, private school, and homeschool. And once we finished the chart, it was pretty clear that what we wanted to do, or what we were going to end up doing, was homeschooling our son. And then I actually took my son to a library read-along. It was a story time at one of the libraries, not even in my county. And I remember just watching him. He was probably about 4 going on 5. And we had already finished up our chart, and I was still on the fence because it's a scary thing. And I remember him just kind of sitting there and watching everybody. And then as the kids started leaving, the librarian came over to me, and I've never met her before. And she said, "Have you ever thought about homeschooling?" And I said, "Well, my husband and I, we've been working on deciding on what we're going to do." And she said, "Your son would probably do well with homeschooling because he didn't start interacting until a lot of the children started leaving. And then he was comfortable enough to answer questions." So she just started explaining to me how some children just thrive in smaller settings. So there was many different reasons that kind of led us up to this point, but those were, mainly the 2 that kind of made our decision.
Okay, and once you made that decision, how did that make you feel?
Like I said, it was very scary. It wasn't something that I was gung-ho about. It definitely took some time for me to get used to. It was, I just kept thinking, I'm going to mess up my child. I know I'm going to mess up my child. And in my mind, I felt like because I took so long to graduate from college, I just knew that I just wasn't the right one to teach my child. But it ended up turning out very well, I will say.
Right. So despite how you initially felt, it's something you didn't necessarily like, you took it and you embraced it.
Yes.
And then you decided to blog about it.
Yes.
So how did blogging help you deal with homeschooling?
Blogging helped me because I tend to be a complainer. And when things aren't going right, for me, I complain about it. And I'm pretty sure my husband got tired of hearing all the complaints, and my kids probably got tired of hearing all the complaints. And so I remember sitting on my step and just realizing that I knew that I wasn't the only one who felt this way. And I just didn't know anybody personally who felt this way. So I knew I wanted to help. I wanted to help other moms who felt alone in their journey, who may have wanted to homeschool but were scared to homeschool. So I started blogging because writing for me actually helps to calm me down, and which is another reason why we did the chart. I have to see things. And when I'm able to see them, I'm able to comprehend and deal with the situation a lot better when I'm actually able to write. And I honestly started the blog to learn from my children, learn from this journey, this unexpected journey that I was on, and to help someone else who may have been on an unexpected journey. And just motherhood, period, whether you're homeschooled or not, you don't like to feel alone.
Cool. So you blogged for years on and off.
Yes.
And then you turned your blog into a book.
Yes.
So what made you decide to eventually publish a book?
My friends. My friends for years kept saying, you really need to write a book. You really need to write a book. And I just remember after, a couple years of blogging, just one day, it was just like, now's the time. Turn all of your notes. I had Post-it notes everywhere, and it was just turn all of that into a book. And I began to write and reached out to my friends and was like, hey, I think I have a book idea. And that's pretty much how it ended up turning into a book.
Cool. So here it is. The book is finally out. It's about lessons that you've, of course, learned on this journey. So I'm going through the book. It starts with an opener called Embrace the Journey. And then you introduce your family. You lay out mother, father, and each of your children. And then you have photos of your family throughout the book. So it's really a very good personal touch there. So you basically welcome the reader into your family and your world.
Yes.
So what made you decide to make the book so personal?
At first, it wasn't. At first, I did not want to make it that personal because I didn't want, I'm protective of my children. I didn't, want to put them out there like that. But then I began to realize that the people that I enjoy talking to are those who are very authentic, who don't mind opening up, because those are the ones that I tend to relate to. And if I'm trying to help other people, they need to feel like they can relate to me. And one of the things that we do, especially when you become a new parent, you share stories about everything your child does. And I said, well, what better way to invite them into my home and to share stories with them and about my children. And so that's why I decided to make it personal. I wanted someone to be able to relate. And a lot of times you need to see a face, behind to the story in order for you to be able to relate to it. So that's why.
Good. So inside the book, it's laid out into the 32 lessons. It starts with the title. Then you have your 3 sections. You have the My Teachable Moment. Yes. So it tells about a story or an experience that you've had.
Yes.
You have My Lesson Learned section, which tells about the experience that you learned. And then you have the My Ever-Present Help section, which you say is a scripture or passage that anchors you.
Yes.
So was this the same layout that you had for your blog, or did you do something different when you wrote the book?
I did something different when I wrote the book because truth be told, a lot of us don't have a whole lot of time to really sit down and go through a book. And what I wanted the book to be a quick read, a fast read, so that when you need that moment, sometimes we take our moments, just kind of close the door in the bathroom and just have our little moment. I wanted them to be able to quickly read. And so for the blog, it was more so I just needed to get these lessons out. I needed to get this out. Whereas for the book, it was more of, take some time to just sit down, maybe 5 minutes, and just read something that may encourage you. And for me, the ever-present help, the anchor, I needed to be able to leave them with something that they can walk away from the book. And if they didn't remember the story, they can at least remember the lesson or the scripture or the quote that I put in there. I wanted them to walk away encouraged.
Good. And then talking about some of the lessons in the book, so you have some titles that are definitely relatable. Things like sorry, say I'm sorry, even if it may not be enough. Be thankful in all situations, and don't worry, smile. So those are really relatable. So with lessons like that, who would you say would benefit from this book?
Everyone, honestly. I've had fathers read the book who have said that it was very encouraging. I've actually had a classroom. One of my friends from church, her students read it for an assignment for English, and they enjoyed it so much they actually FaceTimed me, and they were able to interview me via FaceTime. And so they actually got a lot out of it. They took a test, and I was able to read the answers from their test. So that group was surprising to me, because I didn't think children would be able to get something out of it. My son's still reading it. My younger two, my daughters, we read it at times, and they critique it, and they're very honest about it. Moms have read it and said that they were encouraged by it. I've even had someone who was not a mom, and she read it, and she said when she walked away from the book, she was very encouraged by it. So, like I said, the audience that surprised me the most were the kids, that they actually enjoyed the lessons, and they were actually able to get something from it.
That's cool. So, personally, I know it's hard you wrote all the lessons, but which one of them stands out for you or is more memorable for you? If you can tell us a little bit about that.
So it's a tie. I couldn't figure out which one. I've been asked that before, but the very first chapter is Hello Iced Coffee. And I'm a coffee drinker, a tea drinker. I love drinking hot beverages. It doesn't matter if it's hot outside or cold outside. And there was just a season I actually had surgery and I wasn't allowed to drink anything hot. And one of my sister-in-laws, she said, try iced coffee. And I was annoyed by that because I'm used to a certain thing and you're telling me to do something out of my norm. And that ended up being the first chapter because homeschooling is out of the norm and you're comfortable. I got very comfortable with the job that I had and the life that I had, and to kind of be to move from that, it was a very different thing. It was out of the norm, but when you embrace it, it becomes a part of your life, and it's one of those things that you just don't look back. And I still drink hot coffee, but iced coffee, I actually do drink from time to time. And it was just a reminder that just because something's different doesn't mean that it's worse. It just means simply that it's different. A lot of times when I talk to people about homeschool, there's this, it feels like there's a division, and that's one of the things that I really want to close. I want to close that gap because we're all, whether you're private school, homeschool, or public school, we're all in it to educate our children the best way possible. So just because something is different doesn't mean that it's better. It just means simply that it's different.
Good, very good. So this book, has the 32 lessons, and of course you're still homeschooling your children.
Yes.
Dynamics have changed a little bit. You went from elementary to middle and almost high school soon. So I can imagine you're still having, learning experiences along the way. Do you have any future plans for books?
I do. I'm currently working on one. I actually started to work on a marriage book, Lessons Learned from My Homeschool Day, the marriage edition. And as I was working on it, I just began to realize that it might be better for me to stay on the path of homeschool because it is different. And there's a lot of marriage books out there, and I'm definitely not a marriage expert, but just the lessons that I learned were really to encourage other homeschool families and non-homeschool families, but about their children and their family. And so I am currently writing again and just learning a lot of lessons, definitely from my middle schooler and now my newest preschooler. So I just honestly wanted to stick with that line of books. Yes.
Okay. Cool. And then as we wrap up, with this being your first published book, and you have gone through the entire process successfully, do you have any advice that you'd like to share with any aspiring authors?
Write. Just write what's from the heart. Don't get scared. I know for me, one of my biggest fears was, who wants to know about my life? I'm a stay-at-home mom, and who wants to know about my life? And during that journey, it made me realize that there's other people out there that want to know about my life because they want somebody to relate to. And so for other authors, just write, just begin to write, whether it's on a Post-it note or index card, whatever it is, on your phone, writing your notes, whatever it is, just start writing. That was the biggest thing for me, just start. And then see where it goes. But that would be the main thing that I would say to them. Just start writing.
Sounds good. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
The way those brush strokes are going, okay? I think you're good. All right, do one more. Do another star. Start with the dot in the middle. And then switch it up.
I know when I'm being a student, then I have to listen and I have to follow her instructions. But I know when I'm her son, then I know that she always loves me and that she just wants what's best for me. It kind of changed my perspective on things. I mean, it it just helps me to keep going and to remember why I'm homeschooling. And I think that she worked really hard as far as on the book, and it just helps me to work even harder in school.
I really like it, and I have fun doing work. And I just like doing work, and I like working hard.
Like little V's. Put that on here.
Okay. Doing the best homework in the world.
Okay.
I want to thank Mrs. Ferguson so much for sharing her story about homeschooling. The book, Lessons Learned from My Homeschool Day, Learning from the Good, the Bad, and the Icky Lessons to Help You Through the Day, is about the trials and tribulations of a mom who decided to homeschool her children, but really, it could be for anyone on an unexpected journey in life. Ms. Ferguson uses her own personal style and humor and invites you into her home and the lives of her family. I think this is a nice, comfortable read, broken down into relatable chapters, so you read a couple of chapters at a time and you gain valuable insight on homeschooling. So take a moment, meet the Fergusons, read a lesson or two a day as you navigate through your way through the unanticipated experiences you may encounter. Thank you, Trina Ferguson, for joining us on Meet the Author. The book, Lessons Learned from My Homeschool Day, Learning from the Good, the Bad, and the Icky Lessons to Help You Through the Day, is available from the publisher's website at jmediagroup.net or at amazon.com. Ms. Ferguson participates in homeschooling podcasts, Facebook Live sessions, local events, and is working on a homeschooling magazine. She has a lot of good stuff going on. Join us again next month on Meet the Author. We'll meet some local children who have penned their first books. I'm Christine Johnson, reminding you to open a book and let it take you on your next adventure.